All right. Seller avatars, how to approach them. So the same script is going to land differently on different people. Learn to read the seller in the first 60 seconds and adjust without losing your process. So why the same script is going to land differently and how to read the room. So obviously a grieving widow and overwhelmed landlord are both going to have properties to sell, but the way you open, the pace that you set, the questions you lead with should feel different to each of them. So by the time you've heard their tone, their first sentence, how they respond to your opener, you'll have enough to make your first adjustment. I'm actually not going to over index on this. Like at the end of the day, your job is to follow the script. Your job is to open them up, use third party stories. So the script is the frame, right? You're not going to throw the script out, you use it. The avatar is going to tell you how to apply it, the pace, the depth, where to slow down, where to go deeper. Your process is going to stay the same. The delivery adapts. So you just have to feel out the seller and how you have to go at it. So the mistake is forcing your style. The rep who talks the same way to every seller is going to lose half the calls they should be winning. So you're going to match their energy first, then lead. Report is always being built no matter the avatar. So this is what I was saying earlier of like the script stays the same. You're always going to continue to dig deeper, share third party stories, build rapport, but you're just going to run into different types of people. So let's go over some of these avatars. So you have the motivated and ready seller. So they're going to call back fast. They're going to answer questions directly. They have a clear reason to sell. So what you want to do obviously is like match their pace. They want to get things done. Use their motivation to go deeper. Don't rush past it. Motivated sellers often have rich emotional context underneath, right? Don't just skip to the offer just because you're like, I got a live one on. You still want to take them through the process. You still want to understand why they're looking to sell, the reason behind it, that sort of thing. Then you have like the skeptical seller, right? This one's going to give you short answers. They're going to be guarded. They're going to ask, who are you again? Why are you calling? That sort of thing. So you want to lead with empathy, transparency. Don't push necessarily, but deflect and redirect. Let them warm up to you, right? You have to be patient and calm with them to build the trust here. And then again, you're going to keep building rapport throughout. So don't get defensive. Don't match their tone. Don't, if they're getting aggressive with you, don't start talking faster and be like, well, what about this? What about that? Right? You want to slow down and you want to take control of the conversation and basically kind of like hold their hand through the initial parts of the conversation and try to understand why they'd consider selling and just slow down, right? If they're getting mad and they're getting angry, you can apologize, which is reactive empathy, right? Be like, hey, I apologize. I didn't mean to offend you. I'm just trying to get some information here. Like, did I catch you at a bad time? Right? And just slow down because they're gonna be amped up, right? Maybe they just had a bad day or they just had a bad call with someone, right? And you just caught them at the wrong time. So you want to be able to slow them down and bring them to your level. Then you have the grieving, emotionally fragile seller, which is kind of the same as a motivated and ready seller. They have loss, like they're going through a really hard time in life. You really want to slow down and you want to match that, right? I've had people on calls like cry to me, and what you need to do is you need to be kind of like their emotional support person, right? Let them talk, be human at the end of the day. Like, give them space to share how they're feeling. Like, they might not have anyone to talk to about this, they might be embarrassed. So, you still want to go through the script, you still want to understand what it would mean to sell and that sort of thing. But you also just want to hear them people to people, person to person, um, and go from there. So next you have the overwhelmed landlord. You want to let them vent, right? Don't cut them off. Validate the exhaustion. Use third party stories. Don't minimize their frustration, right? You want to hear, and this is true. This kind of thought is true with all the sellers that you're going to talk to, right? Overwhelmed landlord, financially distressed seller. Like at the end of the day, these people, some of them are going through very hard times. And you want to be able to understand their situation and understand how we can help them. And, one of the things I had this, there was some wholesaler who said this line that I really liked. And he was like, look, like houses aren't interesting to me, like people are interesting. So I think that line kind of encompasses what we're about as well. And we want to understand the people. The house, I don't really care if the house has a roof that's 15 years old or if the kitchens haven't been updated. I want to understand why you're looking to sell and what it would mean to sell and what it would mean for whatever's next for you. That's my interest. So next we have the curious but not ready seller. They have lots of questions for you. They're just exploring options, right? They're just like be like, well, you called me, or someone said they'd make an offer on my house, and be like, yeah, exactly. That's actually why I'm calling you to see if we're able to get you an offer. So, question for you: if you were to sell, like, why would you? And it's like, well, if I get a good offer, be like, got it. So if you got a good offer, like what's next for you? Where would you go? And then you figure out how long they've lived there. Well, I've lived here for 17 years. It's like, okay, so have you been thinking about selling at all? And then they're like, no, I haven't. It's like, okay, so like if you go to your wife and you say, hey, honey, I got an offer on the property, what do you think she would say? Right? And it's just digging and understanding. So like these people, you just want to keep digging to figure out like have they even looked at places to move to? So they have to sell their house, they have to find a place, they have to pull their kids out of school, they have to tell the wife. It's like, are you serious about selling or do you just want to hear a number? And it's okay if you do. I'm just trying to understand if it's worthwhile for us to make an offer. So rules and common mistakes. Like read the tone and energy in the first 60 seconds. You're still going to go through the script. That doesn't change at all, but just know what you're walking into, right? You're going to match their pace first. I wouldn't over index on anything. You're not going to change your whole personality. It's just like you're getting an indication of what type of seller you're running into and how you might have to handle this differently depending on how the call goes. But the general takeaway here is that rapport is always going to be built throughout the entirety of the call at all points in the call. Um, obviously motivated sellers give you more depth to work with because they have more issues, right? But some of them might not share initially, and it's your job to keep going, keep using the script, keep trying to open them up. You're going to slow down for emotional sellers, give them space, let them be emotional, connect with them. Use third-party stories for overwhelmed, distressed sellers. This is 100% correct, but also just use third-party stories all the time. It shared experiences builds trust, and this is true of anyone. So don't just reserve this for overwhelmed and distressed sellers. You should be using third-party stories in every single one of your calls. Same thing for curious sellers. But with them, you're also going to figure out why they'd want to sell. What's next for them? Here's a third-party story for a curious seller. Be like, hey, I talk to people all the time. I actually just spoke with someone 2 weeks ago about this and talked to them, and they were mentioning that they weren't, it's kind of similar to you. They weren't thinking about selling. They hadn't talked to their wife, and after talking to him for 15, 20 minutes, realized that like he's not quite ready to sell, and that's okay. Like, is that what's going on here, or like another way to say that is, he was instead of saying he wasn't quite ready to sell, then like and realize that what was I gonna say? Trying to go back and think about it. Let's skip the second example for now. But basically, that's how you do use a third-party story for a curious seller. So common mistakes, treating every call the same regardless of seller energy. I think that is true. You don't want to just like roll through the script, right? You're talking to a real person. You're not just a robot repeating the script. It's like just meet them where they are. You have to, if they're getting pissed off about something, you're like, next question. Right? It's like, hey man, did I catch you at a bad time? Did I say something to piss you off? If I did, I apologize, but I'm just wondering if I did something wrong, right? Rushing through rapport on any avatar. Rapport's never optional. That's something you have to do on every call. Spending too long on curious sellers without qualifying motivation. Yes, we want to understand motivation almost immediately once you get through intro and sharing your contact information. Don't get defensive ever with skeptical sellers, right? You have to be patient. You have to be empathetic. You have to meet them where they are. Don't jump to price before understanding what's driving the decision. And then assuming a motivated seller doesn't have more depth to give. They usually do. Even non-motivated sellers have more depth to give. They just don't share it because they'll be like too busy, be like, give me an offer. So drill in. And this is kind of objection handling as well. They're like, yeah, like I've gotten like 10 of these calls. I'm not taking a low ball offer. So what's the seller? Skeptical, right? What's your first response? Lead with empathy. Don't get defensive. Be like, hey, I completely understand. You've probably heard a lot of the same thing. My goal here isn't to lowball you. It's just get an accurate picture of what the property would qualify for. Can I ask you, like, do Do you have an idea of what you're looking to get out of it? You can ask that. You can also just go into motivation. Can I ask you though, like, what has you even considering selling? Be like, well, I'm not considering selling. You guys called me up, so I'm open to getting an offer. Be like, okay, cool. Did you have a number in mind that you're looking to get? Be like, no, what's your offer? Be like I said, the offer is going to depend on the condition of the property. So that's my job, and that's why I'm giving you a call. Let me ask you this. If you were to sell, like, do you already have somewhere you would move to? Be like, no, but I would figure that out. Be like, gotcha, gotcha. Because I talk to people all the time, and they say something similar of like, I'll figure it out. But a lot of times they haven't put any thought into selling because they weren't really looking to sell. So even if we did get to a number that made sense for them, they'd have to find a place. They'd have to tell their wife that they're selling, their kids, and it's not really feasible for people. So I'm curious, like, how long have you even been slightly considering selling? Or like, if you were to sell, not saying you will, but if you were to, like, why would you, right? And sometimes you just have to like call them out. It's like, look, like, it sounds to me like you have no real reason to sell. And they'll be like, for money. If they say for money, like if I get a good price, I would ask, like, okay, so if you get a good price, what are you going to do next? Right? Because then they'll be like, oh, well, I don't know. Because I still need to find a place. It's like, exactly. So it's not, it seems to me like, people say this all the time, like, yeah, I'd sell for the right price, but the right price still doesn't solve for like what's next, where are you going to move to, that sort of thing. So then you have these different avatars. My mother passed away. It was her house. I'm so done with these tenants, overwhelmed landlord, using third party stories, digging into motivation, that sort of thing. So you'll encounter all these people over time, but it's being able to just understand like what their avatar is and how to talk to them.